On the shimmering crystalline planet of Zorothia, home to the mighty Zorothians, life thrived in ways that defied human understanding. Towering spires made of translucent minerals stretched into skies painted with hues no earthly sunset could replicate. Rivers of liquid light flowed through valleys where gravity seemed more like a suggestion than a law. It was a world so advanced, so breathtakingly beautiful that humanity's presence there felt almost laughable. The Zorothians were an ancient species, their civilization spanning millennia. They were elegant beings, standing twice as tall as humans, with iridescent skin and elongated limbs that moved with fluid grace. Their technology was unparalleled. Entire cities floated effortlessly above the ground, powered by energy sources humanity hadn't even dreamed of harnessing. To them, humans were little more than primitive creatures who had stumbled upon interstellar travel far too late to matter. Humans had arrived on Zorothia decades ago, invited not out of respect but curiosity. The Zorothian queen, Alara, had extended the invitation after detecting faint signals from Earth's earliest space probes. She saw potential in studying these fragile beings, much like how one might observe ants building a colony. Humans were tolerated, allowed to live in small enclaves at the edges of Zorothian territory, but they were never truly accepted. Instead, they were mocked for their short lifespans, chaotic emotions, and reliance on brute ingenuity rather than refined intellect. Despite this disdain, some humans found purpose among the stars. One such individual was Dr. Alina Voss, a physician known for her unorthodox methods and relentless determination. Alina had grown up hearing stories about Zorothia from her grandfather, a scientist who had been part of the first delegation sent to the alien world. Her fascination with the Zorothians wasn't rooted in awe or fear, it was driven by something deeper, empathy. She believed that beneath their cold exteriors, the Zorothians were not so different from humans. One fateful day, everything changed. News spread rapidly across Zorothia like ripples in one of its glowing rivers. The queen herself had fallen ill. Alara, whose very name inspired reverence and obedience, lay unconscious in her royal chamber, her heart, a massive, pulsating organ encased within layers of bioluminescent tissue, had inexplicably stopped functioning properly. The Zorothian Medical Council, composed of the brightest minds in their society, gathered around her, their usually serene faces etched with panic. For days, they worked tirelessly, employing tools and techniques far beyond human comprehension. Yet despite their efforts, Ilara's condition worsened. No one understood why her body was failing. It was as if the universe itself had conspired against her. Rumors began to circulate among both Zorothians and humans alike. Some whispered of a curse, others of sabotage, but none dared voice what many secretly feared, that perhaps the Great Queen was mortal after all. Meanwhile, in the human enclave, whispers turned into murmurs of opportunity. If the Zorothians couldn't save their own ruler, maybe someone else could. While most dismissed the idea outright, Alina refused to ignore it. She had spent years studying Zorothian biology during her time on the planet, poring over data collected by previous researchers. Though she lacked access to their advanced equipment, she possessed something they didn't: creativity born from necessity. Alina approached the edge of the enclave, staring out at the towering structures that housed the Zorothians. She knew attempting to intervene would be risky. Humans weren't permitted near the royal palace under normal circumstances, let alone during a crisis involving their beloved queen. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment mattered not just for the Zorothians but for humanity itself. That as night fell over Zorothia, casting the landscape in soft ethereal light, Alina made her decision. Gathering what few supplies she had, she prepared to leave the safety of the enclave. What she didn't know was that she wasn't alone in her resolve. Across the settlement, other humans watched her departure with a mix of hope and dread. For better or worse, humanity's fate seemed tied to whatever happened next. Little did anyone realize, this single act of courage would set off a chain of events that would challenge everything the Zorothians and humans thought they knew about themselves. Dr. Alina Voss moved cautiously through the glowing forest that separated the human enclave from the heart of Zorothian territory. The air shimmered around her, filled with particles of light that danced like fireflies, casting an otherworldly glow on everything they touched. Her footsteps were soft against the crystalline ground, but each step felt heavier than the last. She knew she was risking not only her life but also the fragile peace between humans and Zorothians. Yet, something deep inside urged her forward, a quiet belief that this moment could redefine how both species saw one another. As she approached the edge of the royal palace, Elena's heart raced. The structure loomed ahead, its spires reaching impossibly high into the sky, their surfaces pulsing faintly as if alive. Guards stood at attention near the entrance, their towering forms exuding authority and power. They didn't notice her immediately. She blended into the shadows cast by the luminous trees, but staying hidden wouldn't get her closer to the queen. Taking a deep breath, Alina stepped out into the open. "Stop," one of the guards barked, his voice resonating like thunder. He raised a long, sleek weapon, its design sleek yet unfamiliar. "Humans are forbidden here." Alina froze, raising her hands slowly to show she meant no harm. "I'm Dr. Alina Voss," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I've come to help your queen." The guard tilted his head slightly, his glowing eyes narrowing in confusion. "Help you?" His tone dripped with disbelief. "What can a human possibly offer?" Alina swallowed hard, choosing her words carefully. "Your medical council has access to technology we can only dream of, but sometimes solutions require more than machines. Sometimes they need perspective. I believe I might see something others have missed." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then, without warning, another figure emerged from the Palasan Elder Zorathian, his skin shimmering with intricate patterns that marked him as part of the Royal Advisory Council. His presence commanded respect even among the guards, who lowered their weapons instinctively. "What is this disturbance?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. "This human claims she can assist with the Queen's condition." The guard replied, gesturing toward Alina. The elder studied her intently, his gaze piercing. "You must understand," he said after a pause. "Our Queen is dying. Our brightest minds have failed to diagnose her ailment. Why should we trust you?" Alina met his stare, refusing to look away. "Because I care," she said simply. "And because sometimes caring is enough to make someone try when everyone else gives up." Her response seemed to catch the elder off guard. For a species that prided itself on logic and precision, such raw emotion was foreign and unsettling. After a long moment, he nodded curtly. "Very well. If you wish to waste your time, follow me. But know this, failure will not be tolerated." Inside the palace, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The halls were lined with walls that appeared to breathe, their surfaces rippling gently as though alive. Soft hums filled the air, creating a sense of tranquility that contrasted sharply with the urgency of the situation. As Alina followed the elder deeper into the structure, she caught glimpses of Zorathian doctors rushing past, their movements frantic yet precise. It was clear they were running out of options. Finally, they reached the Queen's chamber. Alara lay atop a hovering platform, her massive form dwarfing everything around her. Her once vibrant iridescent skin had dulled, and the bioluminescent patterns across her chest flickered weakly, like dying stars. Surrounding her were the members of the medical council, their expressions grim as they debated in hushed tones. When Alina entered, the room fell silent. Dozens of glowing eyes turned toward her, some curious, others hostile. One of the doctors stepped forward, his posture rigid. "Explain yourself, human," he demanded. "What could you possibly know about our Queen's physiology?" Alina took a deep breath, steeling herself. "I may not understand all of it," she admitted, "but I do know this. Every living being shares certain fundamental truths. We're all governed by biology, chemistry, and physics even you, and sometimes problems arise not because of what we are, but because of how we live." She pointed to a holographic display hovering above Alara's body, showing intricate diagrams of her internal systems. "From what I've seen, her heart isn't failing due to injury or disease. It's reacting to something external, something environmental." The room erupted into murmurs. Some dismissed her theory outright, while others looked intrigued. The elder who had escorted her spoke up, explained further. Alina hesitated, then plunged ahead. "On Earth, stress and emotional strain can manifest physically. Your Queen rules over a vast empire, carrying the weight of countless decisions. Could it be that her heart is suffering because of the burden she carries?" The suggestion sparked outrage among the council members. "Ridiculous," one exclaimed. "Our Queen is above such trivial concerns." But the elder held up a hand, silencing them. "Perhaps," he said thoughtfully, "there is merit in her words. Humans are known for their resilience in the face of adversity. Perhaps their perspective can shed light where ours cannot." With reluctant permission granted, Alina began examining Alara more closely, using a portable scanner she'd brought from the enclave. She mapped the Queen's vital signs alongside data provided by the Zorathians. What she discovered shocked her and everyone else in the room. Alara's condition wasn't purely physiological. Buried within the data were subtle fluctuations in her neural activity, indicating that her mind was under immense strain. It was as if decades of leadership had taken a toll not just on her body, but on her spirit. "This isn't just physical exhaustion," Alina explained. "It's emotional. Your Queen needs rest, not just sleep, but true relief from the pressures." But ruling the council stared at her, stunned. For a people who valued efficiency above all else, the idea of prioritizing emotional well-being was almost incomprehensible. Yet, as they looked at their ailing Queen, doubt began to creep into their minds. Could this fragile human woman truly hold the key to saving their leader? As the debate raged on, Alina remained focused on Alara, her determination unwavering. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But she also knew one thing for certain: humanity's strength lay not in its tools, but in its heart. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was exactly what the Zorathians needed most. The room buzzed with tension as Alina's words hung in the air like an unspoken challenge. The Zorathian Medical Council, accustomed to relying on cold logic and advanced technology, struggled to process her suggestion. Emotional strain, rest, These concepts were foreign to them, almost laughable. Their society had long prided itself on efficiency, discipline, and detachment, qualities they believed elevated them above other species. To entertain the idea that their revered queen might be suffering because of something so human was almost insulting. One of the younger doctors stepped forward, his glowing eyes sharp with skepticism. "You propose that our queen, a being whose wisdom has guided this empire for centuries, is simply overworked?" His tone dripped with disdain. "Do you truly expect us to believe that emotions could overpower her physiology?" Elena didn't flinch. She'd faced resistance before, both from colleagues and skeptics back on Earth. This was no different. "Emotions aren't weakness," she replied calmly. "They're part of what makes life meaningful and complex. Even your biology reflects that. Look at her neural patterns." She gestured toward the holographic display hovering above a still form. "Her brain activity shows signs of chronic stress. It's not just physical exhaustion, it's emotional fatigue." The elder who had escorted Elena into the palace studied her carefully. There was a flicker of curiosity in his expression now, though he masked it quickly. "And what do you suggest we do about it?" he asked, his voice measured but tinged with doubt. "How does one rest when ruling an entire civilization?" "That's where creativity comes in," Elena said, her confidence growing. "Humans don't always have access to perfect tools or ideal conditions. We adapt. We find solutions even when they seem impossible." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Your queen needs time away from the pressures of leadership, not forever, but long enough to heal. And she needs support, not just medical care, but genuine connection." The council erupted into murmurs again, some dismissive, others intrigued. One older doctor shook his head vehemently. "Absurd, our queen cannot simply step aside. Who would lead in her absence? Chaos would ensue." But another voice cut through the chaos, a softer, more contemplative one. It belonged to a female Zorathian who had been silent until now. Her iridescent skin shimmered faintly as she spoke. "Perhaps there is wisdom in her words," she said slowly. "We pride ourselves on our strength, yet perhaps we've forgotten the value of balance. Even the stars require darkness to shine." Her statement silenced the room. For a species that valued harmony in all things, the metaphor struck a chord. Still, the practicalities of implementing such a plan seemed insurmountable. How could they possibly convince the queen or themselves to embrace something so alien? Elena seized a moment. "Let me try," she said firmly. "I can monitor her condition while working with your team to create a safe environment for recovery, but I'll need cooperation from all of you." The elder exchanged glances with the others, weighing the risks. Finally he nodded. "Very well, you may proceed. But know this, failure will reflect poorly not only on you, but on your entire species." With that ominous warning hanging over her, Elena set to work. Over the next several hours, she collaborated closely with the Zorothian medical team, blending human ingenuity with their advanced technology. Together they devised a plan to temporarily transfer Alara's responsibilities to a council of advisors, ensuring stability during her absence. Meanwhile, Elena focused on creating a calming environment within the palace, a sanctuary designed to promote relaxation and healing. She introduced simple yet effective techniques she'd learned during her years as a physician: soothing sounds, gentle lighting, and even tactile objects meant to evoke comfort. The Zorothians watched her efforts with a mix of fascination and unease. Some dismissed these methods as primitive, while others found themselves oddly drawn to their simplicity. One young doctor, in particular, began asking questions about how humans managed stress without resorting to invasive procedures or chemical treatments. Elena answered patiently, sharing stories of resilience and adaptation from Earth's history. Days passed. Small changes became evident in Alara's condition. Her bioluminescent patterns grew brighter, and the fluctuations in her neural activity began to stabilize. While far from fully recovered, the queen showed undeniable signs of improvement. The council couldn't deny the progress, though many remained reluctant to acknowledge Elena's role in it. Tensions simmered beneath the surface. However, not everyone welcomed humanity's involvement in such a critical matter. Rumors spread among the lower ranks of Zorothian society, fueled by fear and resentment. Some accused the humans of meddling where they didn't belong, while others whispered of hidden motives behind Elena's actions. Back in the human enclave, news of Elena's efforts reached her fellow settlers. Reactions were mixed. Some celebrated her bravery, seeing it as proof that humanity could contribute meaningfully to interstellar society. Others worried that her boldness might provoke retaliation from the Zorothians if things went wrong. Among the dissenters was Marcus Hale, a former colleague of Elena's who had always been skeptical of her unconventional methods. "You're playing with fire," Marcus warned during a rare visit to the palace. He stood at the edge of Ilara's chamber, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "If this doesn't work, if anything happens to the queen, they'll blame us, all of us." Elena met his gaze evenly. "Doing nothing guarantees failure. At least this way, we have a chance to prove ourselves." Marcus sighed, shaking his head. "I hope you're right, Elena, because if you're not, none of us will survive the fallout." Despite the mounting pressure, Alina refused to waver. She knew the stakes were high not just for Alara, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. If she succeeded, it would force the Zorothians to see humans in a new light as equals capable of contributing something unique and valuable. But if she failed, the consequences would ripple far beyond Zora Thia. As she worked tirelessly alongside the Zorothian medical team, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a medical challenge. It was a test of trust, empathy, and understanding, a turning point that could redefine the relationship between two vastly different species. And deep down, she knew the hardest battles were yet to come. The days that followed were a blur of activity for Alina. She worked tirelessly, monitoring Alara's condition while continuing to refine the sanctuary she had created within the palace. The queen's recovery was slow but steady, a flicker of hope in an otherwise tense and uncertain time. Yet, as progress became more visible, so too did the cracks in the fragile alliance between humans and Zorothians. Tensions simmered throughout the palace, bubbling just beneath the surface. Some members of the medical council began to question whether Alina's methods were truly responsible for Alara's improvement or if it was merely coincidence. Others grew increasingly uneasy with the growing attention her efforts were receiving. News of the human doctor's involvement spread beyond the royal chambers, sparking debates across Zorthia. For a society built on hierarchy and precision, the idea of relying on someone as unremarkable as a human felt like an affront to their pride. One evening, as Alina reviewed data from Alara's latest scans, she overheard fragments of conversation drifting through the crystalline walls of the chamber. Two elder Zorathians stood nearby, their voices low but tinged with frustration. Isn't acceptable, one said sharply. We cannot allow humanity to claim credit for saving our queen. It undermines everything we stand for. And yet, the other countered, his tone quieter but no less intense. Her methods are working. Would you rather see Alara perish out of stubbornness? The first elder hesitated, his glowing eyes narrowing. There must be another explanation. Perhaps her actions merely coincided with natural healing processes. We should investigate further before drawing conclusions. Alina clenched her jaw, forcing herself to remain calm. She had anticipated resistance, but hearing their doubts so plainly stung. Still, she reminded herself why she was here, not for recognition, but to help. Pushing aside her frustration, she returned to her work, determined to prove them wrong. Meanwhile, back in the human enclave, whispers of rebellion began to take root. Marcus Hale, who had always been skeptical of Elena's approach, found himself at the center of a growing movement. He argued passionately that Elena's actions were reckless, putting all of humanity at risk by stepping into matters they didn't fully understand. She's playing with forces beyond her control. Marcus told a small group gathered in the communal hall. If something goes wrong, if the queen relapses, or worse, the Zorothians won't hesitate to retaliate. They'll see us as a threat, not allies. His words struck a chord with many. Fear of retaliation was a powerful motivator, and some settlers began calling for Alina to abandon her mission and return to the enclave. But not everyone agreed. Among those who supported her was Priya Patel, a biologist who had worked closely with Alina during their early years on Zorothea. Alina isn't acting recklessly, Priya argued, her voice firm despite the murmurs of dissent around her. She's showing them what we're capable of, what makes us human. If we pull back now, we're telling them we're exactly what they think we are: weak, insignificant, unworthy. The debate raged late into the night, dividing the enclave. While some prepared to confront Alina and demand her withdrawal, others vowed to stand by her side, believing her success could change the course of history. Amidst this turmoil, Alina faced another challenge, one far closer to home. One of the younger Zorothian doctors, a quiet but curious individual named Kale, approached her after hours, his demeanor unusually hesitant. "I need to speak with you," he said, glancing over his shoulder as though afraid of being overheard. Privately. Intrigued, Alina followed him to a secluded alcove near the edge of the palace. There, under the soft glow of bioluminescent crystals, Kale revealed something unexpected. "Support. I've watched you closely these past days," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your methods, they're unconventional, yes, but effective. I believe you're right about the Queen's condition. Emotional strain can manifest physically. It's something we rarely acknowledge, but it makes sense." Alina blinked, surprised by his candor. "Why tell me this now?" she asked cautiously. "Because not everyone shares my perspective," Kale replied grimly. "Some among the council fear your influence. They worry that if you succeed, will undermine their authority and ours as a species. They may try to sabotage your efforts." A chill ran down Elena's spine. Sabotage, the thought hadn't occurred to her, but now that Kale mentioned it, certain inconsistencies in recent treatments made more sense. Missing data points, altered settings on equipment. It wasn't paranoia if there really was a plot against her. "What do you suggest I do?" she asked, her mind racing. Kale hesitated, then leaned closer. "Keep doing what you're doing, but document everything. Make sure there's evidence of your contributions, and trust no one except those who have proven themselves loyal." With that cryptic warning, Kale slipped away, leaving Alina alone with her thoughts. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on her shoulders, but instead of despair, she felt a spark of determination ignite within her. If the Zerothians doubted her, if even her own people questioned her motives, then she would simply have to prove them all wrong. Over the next few days, Alina redoubled her efforts. She meticulously recorded every treatment, every observation, ensuring nothing could be disputed later. At the same time, she reached out to Priya and a handful of trusted allies within the enclave, asking for their help in gathering additional resources and support. Together, they formed a small but dedicated team committed to seeing the mission through. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Ilara's condition continued to improve, her once flickering bioluminescence now shining steadily. The Queen's advisors noticed too. Though reluctant to admit it, they couldn't deny the correlation between Elena's interventions and the Queen's recovery. Then came the moment that changed everything. Late one night, as Elena adjusted the settings on a device designed to simulate calming earth sounds, Ilara stirred. Her massive eyelids fluttered open, revealing iridescent orbs that glowed faintly in the dim light. For a moment she simply stared at Elena, her expression unreadable. Then, in a voice both soft and commanding, she spoke. "He saved me," Ilara said, her words carrying a weight that resonated through the chamber. Elena froze, unsure how to respond. Before she could find the right words, the Queen continued. "No one else saw what you did. No one else dared to look beyond logic to find truth." Ilara paused, her gaze piercing yet gentle. "Perhaps we have underestimated your kind." It was a turning point not just for Elena, but for humanity itself. In that single acknowledgement, the foundation of mistrust between humans and Zorothians began to shift. But as Elena looked into the Queen's luminous eyes, she knew the journey was far from over. The road ahead would require more than ingenuity. It would demand unity, courage, and heart. The Queen's acknowledgement of Elena's effort sent ripples through the palace, but it was far from a universal victory. While Ilara's words carried immense weight, they also ignited fierce resistance among those who refused to accept humanity's role in her recovery. For every Zerothian who began to see humans in a new light, there were others determined to discredit Elena and erase any trace of her influence. Kale proved to be an invaluable ally during this turbulent time. He quietly fed Elena information about dissenters within the council, warning her of potential sabotage attempts. "They're planning something," he told her one evening as they met in the same secluded alcove where their alliance had begun. "I overheard whispers of a formal inquiry, a demand for proof that your methods were truly responsible for the Queen's improvement." Elena frowned, her mind racing. "Proof is what I've been documenting all along," she replied firmly. "Every treatment, every observation, all recorded." Kale nodded, though his expression remained troubled. "Documentation may not be enough. Some will argue that coincidence played a role, or worse, claim you manipulated the data. You need something undeniable, something that proves beyond doubt that your approach saved the Queen." "But how?" Elena asked, frustration creeping into her voice. "What more can I possibly do?" Kale hesitated, then leaned closer. "There's one thing no one can deny. The Queen herself. If she publicly endorses your methods, if she acknowledges your contribution before the entire empire, it would silence even the harshest critics." Elena stared at him, the enormity of the suggestion sinking in. Asking the Queen to openly champion humanity's efforts was risky. It could alienate powerful factions within the Zerothian hierarchy and deepen divisions already threatening to tear their society apart. Yet Kale was right, it might be the only way to secure lasting change. Determined to seize the opportunity, Elena requested an audience with Ilara. The Queen granted it without hesitation, inviting her to a private chamber adorned with shimmering tapestries that seemed to pulse with life. As Elena entered, she found Ilara seated on a low platform, her presence commanding yet serene. Dr. Voss, the Queen, greeted her, her voice soft but resonant. "You wished to speak with me." Elena took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Your Majesty, I am honored by your trust and gratitude, but there are those who doubt my role in your recovery and, by extension, humanity's worth. They seek to undermine what we've accomplished here. To protect our progress, I humbly ask for your public support. Will you acknowledge the value of human ingenuity and empathy, not just for me, but for my people?" Ilara studied her for a long moment, her luminous eyes reflecting wisdom accumulated over centuries. Finally, she spoke. "I owe you my life, Dr. Voss. More than that, I owe you the truth. My people have grown complacent, relying too heavily on logic while neglecting the power of emotion and connection. Your actions have reminded us of what we've forgotten." She paused, her gaze steady. "Very well, I will address my people and honor your contributions. But know this, such an act will come at a cost. Change is never easy, especially for a species as proud as ours." Elena bowed her head in gratitude, though her heart raced with apprehension. She knew a decision would spark outrage among dissenters, but it was a risk worth taking. The announcement came 2 days later, broadcast across Zorothia's vast communication network. From floating cities to crystalline forests, millions of Zorothians gathered to hear their Queen's words. Alara stood atop a glowing dais, her towering form bathed in radiant light as she addressed her people. For generations, we have prided ourselves on our intellect, our precision, our strength, she began, her voice echoing like distant thunder. Yet, in our pursuit of perfection, we have overlooked the importance of balance. Emotion is not weakness, it is a force that binds us together, shaping who we are and what we become. She paused, letting her words resonate before continuing. In my darkest hour, when even our brightest minds could not save me, it was a human being many of you see as insignificant, who showed us the path to healing. Dr. Elena Voss did not rely on machines or calculations. She relied on empathy, creativity, and courage. Through her, we must learn to embrace qualities we have long dismissed. The reaction was immediate and polarizing. Cheers erupted in some regions, particularly among younger Zorathians eager for change. In others, anger boiled over, with protests breaking out in response to the Queen's proclamation. Dissenters accused Alara of compromising their values, while rumors of rebellion spread like wildfire. Back in the human enclave, tensions reached a breaking point. Marcus Hale and his followers demanded that Alina step down, fearing retaliation from the Zorathians. This isn't about proving ourselves anymore, Marcus shouted during a heated meeting. This is survival. If the Zorathians turn against us, we'll be wiped out. But Alina refused to back down. Supported by Priya and a growing number of allies, she argued that retreat would undo everything they'd fought for. We didn't come this far to give up now, she said fiercely. If we stand united, we show them that we're willing to fight for peace. They'll see we're more than survivors. We're partners. Her resolve inspired others to join her cause. Humans and sympathetic Zorathians alike rallied around her, forming a coalition dedicated to bridging the gap between their species. Together they organized cultural exchanges, shared stories of resilience and adaptation, and worked side by side to strengthen ties. Despite these efforts, danger loomed on the horizon. Reports surfaced of rogue factions plotting to destabilize the fragile truce. One night, as Alina reviewed plans for a joint medical initiative, Kale appeared unexpectedly, his usual composure replaced by urgency. "They're coming for you," he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. "A group of extremists plans to attack the enclave tomorrow. They believe eliminating you will undo the Queen's decision." Elena's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Then we prepared," she said firmly. "We won't let fear dictate our future." With Kale's help, Elena coordinated with both human and Zorathian allies to fortify the enclave. Barriers were erected, defensive strategies devised, and evacuation routes mapped out. Though outnumbered and outmatched, the coalition stood ready to defend what they had built. As dawn broke over Zorathia, casting its ethereal glow across the landscape, Alina stood at the edge of the enclave gazing out at the horizon. Behind her, humans and Zorathians worked together, united by a shared purpose. Ahead lay uncertainty but also hope. "Whatever happens next," Priya said softly, joining her side, "we face it together." Alina nodded, a quiet smile tugging at her lips. Together. The attack came at dawn, just as Kale had warned. The sky above Zorathia was painted in soft hues of lavender and gold, the crystalline landscape shimmering beneath the light. But instead of peace, chaos erupted. A group of rogue Zorathians, clad in sleek black armor that absorbed rather than reflected light, descended upon the human enclave with terrifying precision. Their weapons hummed ominously, their movements coordinated like a well-oiled machine. Alina stood near the front line, her heart pounding but her resolve unshaken. Around her, humans and sympathetic Zorathians worked together to defend their fragile alliance. Barriers made of repurposed materials glowed faintly under the strain of energy blasts, while defenders armed with improvised tools held their ground against overwhelming odds. "Stay focused," Alina shouted over the din of battle, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We can't let them break us." Her words seemed to ignite something within the defenders. Humans, who had once been seen as weak and insignificant, fought alongside their Zorathian allies with startling determination. They used creativity where brute force failed, redirecting enemy fire with reflective surfaces, creating diversions with bursts of light, and even using sound waves to disorient attackers. It wasn't technology or brute strength that gave them an edge. It was ingenuity born from necessity. Kale moved swiftly through the fray, his towering form striking fear into the rogues as he wielded a weapon unlike any they carried. He fought not out of hatred, but out of conviction, a belief that change was worth fighting for. His presence bolstered morale, proving to both sides that unity could overcome division. Amidst the chaos, Alina noticed a critical vulnerability. The rogue's leader, a shadowy figure whose identity remained obscured beneath a dark visor, was directing the assault from a nearby ridge. If they could neutralize him, the rest of the attackers would falter. "We need to take out their leader," she called to Kale, pointing toward the ridge. Understanding immediately, Kale nodded. "Cover me." Together, they devised a plan, while Alina coordinated the defenders to create a diversion using flares and synchronized attacks to draw attention away from the ridge. Kale sprinted toward the leader, moving with speed and grace that defied his size. The rogue scrambled to intercept him, but Elena's team held him off with relentless determination. When Kale reached the ridge, he confronted the leader first. For a moment, the two locked eyes, their glowing forms casting eerie shadows on the ground. Then, without hesitation, Kale struck not with violence, but with words. "You think destroying humanity will restore balance?" he demanded, his voice resonating with authority. "You're wrong. Their strength lies in what you fear most: connection, empathy, and adaptability. By attacking them, you dishonor everything we stand for as Zorthians." The leader hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his features. Behind him, the tide of battle began to shift. Inspired by Kale's bravery, more Zorathians joined the defense, turning against their former comrades. One by one, the rogues dropped their weapons, overwhelmed by the sheer force of unity opposing them. As the last attacker surrendered, silence fell over the battlefield. The air crackled with tension but also with possibility. Standing amidst the aftermath, Alina felt a surge of emotion, pride, relief, and gratitude. They had won, but the victory was bittersweet. Lives had been lost, and scars would remain. Yet, something profound had changed. Alara arrived shortly after, her luminous form casting a calming glow over the scene. She surveyed the damage, her expression unreadable yet deeply moved. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "This day will be remembered," she declared, addressing both humans and Zorothians alike. "Not for the conflict, but for the courage displayed by all of you. Today we have witnessed the true strength of humanity in their tools or tactics, but in their hearts. And today we have seen our own people rise above fear to embrace a new path." Her words resonated deeply, bridging the divide between species. Those who had doubted humanity's worth now looked upon them with newfound respect. Even Marcus Hale, who had once opposed Elena so vehemently, stepped forward reluctantly. "Misjudged you," he admitted, his voice tinged with shame. "You've done something incredible here, Elena, something none of us thought possible." Elena offered him a small, weary smile. "It wasn't just me. This was all of us together." In the days that followed, the coalition worked tirelessly to rebuild and heal. The Queen announced sweeping reforms aimed at fostering greater cooperation between humans and Zorothians, including joint research initiatives, cultural exchanges, and shared governance structures. Slowly but surely, trust began to take root, where suspicion had once festered. For Alina, the experience transformed not only her relationship with the Zorothians but also her understanding of humanity itself. She realized that their greatest strength wasn't logic or power, it was their ability to connect, to adapt, and to persevere no matter the odds. One evening, as she stood on the outskirts of the rebuilt enclave, gazing up at the stars, Kale joined her. Together, they watched the cosmos stretch endlessly before them, full of mystery and potential. "You've changed everything," Kale said quietly, breaking the silence. "Not just for your people, but for mine as well." Alina shook her head, her gaze steady. "No, we did this together. Humanity and Zorothians were stronger when we work as one." Kale smiled faintly, his glowing eyes reflecting the same hope that filled Elena's heart. In that moment, they both knew the galaxy would never be the same again. The weeks that followed the battle were transformative not just for Zorthia, but for the galaxy as a whole. The fragile alliance between humans and Zorothians had been tested to its limits, yet it emerged stronger than ever. Ilara's reforms took root quickly, reshaping the foundations of Zorothian society. For the first time in their history, they began to embrace qualities they had long dismissed: empathy, adaptability, and collaboration. The Queen herself became a symbol of this new era, her recovery serving as proof that even the mightiest beings could benefit from vulnerability and trust. Alina stood at the forefront of this change, not as a conqueror or hero, but as a bridge, living testament to what humanity could offer when given the chance. She worked tirelessly alongside Kale and other Zorthian allies to implement joint initiatives aimed at fostering understanding between their species. Laboratories once reserved exclusively for Zorothian scientists now welcomed human researchers. While cultural festivals celebrated traditions from both worlds, it wasn't always easy. Old prejudices lingered, and progress was slow. But every small victory brought them closer to a future where coexistence wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. One evening, Alina found herself back in the sanctuary she had created within the palace. The space, once designed solely for Ilara's healing, had become a place of reflection for all who sought solace. Bioluminescent crystals cast gentle light across the room, and soft earth melodies played in the background, blending harmoniously with the hum of Zorothian energy fields. Alina sat cross-legged on the floor, her mind drifting over everything that had transpired since her arrival on Zorthia, thinking about home. A familiar voice asked. She turned to see Priya standing in the doorway, her face glowing faintly. In the dim light, over the past months, Priya had become more than just an Elishewa's family. Together, they had weathered storms, celebrated victories, and forged bonds that would last a lifetime. Not exactly, Alina replied with a small smile. Just reflecting on how far we've come. Priya stepped inside, joining her on the floor. It's incredible, isn't it? I never imagined we'd be here working side by side with Zorathians, building something together. Sometimes I wonder if anyone back on Earth would believe us." Alina chuckled softly. "Probably not. They'd think we're dreaming, but we're not," Priya said firmly. "This is real. We've proven that humanity has a place among the stars not because of our technology or strength, but because of who we are, because we care." Alina nodded, her gaze distant. "Do you remember when we first arrived here, how everyone thought we were insignificant, unworthy?" "I remember," Priya said, her tone tinged with nostalgia. "But look at us now. Look at you. You didn't just save a queen, you changed an empire." "It wasn't just me," Alina insisted. "It was all of us. Every human who refused to give up. Every Zorathian who dared to question their assumptions. Change doesn't happen because of one person, it happens because people come together." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps echoing softly through the chamber. Alara entered, her towering form radiating warmth and gratitude. She moved gracefully toward them, lowering herself onto a nearby platform so she could meet their eyes directly. "You honor me with your presence," the queen said, her voice resonant yet gentle. "I wanted to thank you for everything." Alina shook her head. "There's no need to thank us, Your Majesty. We did what anyone would have done." "No," Alara corrected, her luminous eyes shining brightly. "You did what few dared to attempt. You reminded us of truths we had forgotten, and in doing so, you gave my people and yours a future worth fighting for." For a moment, silence filled the chamber, broken only by the soft hum of energy around them. Then Alara continued, her words carrying the weight of prophecy. "Long ago, our ancestors believed that civilizations thrived not because of their power, but because of their ability to connect, to find common ground despite differences. Today, thanks to you, we have rediscovered that wisdom. Humanity has taught us that strength lies not in dominance, but in unity. That knowledge will guide us as we move forward, not just as Zorathians, but as part of something greater." Words hung in the air, reverberating through the chamber like a promise. Alina felt tears welling in her eyes, though she blinked them away quickly. This wasn't the end of their journey, it was the beginning. When Alara departed, leaving Alina and Priya alone once more, the two women sat in companionable silence. Outside, the crystalline forest shimmered under the glow of Zorathia's twin moons, casting the world in hues of silver and blue. Somewhere in the distance, laughter echoed, a blend of human voices and melodic Zorathian tones. "You know," Priya said after a while, breaking the quiet, "I used to dream of making history. Now I realize it's not about being remembered, it's about making a difference." Alina smiled, her heart swelling with pride and hope. "We've made a difference," she said softly, "and maybe, just maybe, that's enough." As they rose to leave the sanctuary, hand in hand, Alina paused at the threshold, looking back one last time. The room seemed alive with possibility, a reminder of how far they had come and how much further they could go. In that moment, she understood something profound. Humanity's greatest gift wasn't its ability to survive, but its capacity to inspire. Underneath the vast expanse of stars, humanity and Zorathians stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together they had rewritten the rules of existence, proving that even in the darkest times, light could prevail if only hearts remained open. Then so, the story of Zorathia became legend, a tale of courage, connection, and the unyielding, the spirit of those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow.